Okay, hey everyone. So today's video, I'm gonna be kind of doing like a course sort of series, and the first video is gonna be on lines, and I feel like it's kind of the best way to start. And I want to make the series like if you've never drawn at all, and you kind of want to like learn everything that you would need to basically be able to draw whatever you want, and so that's kind of the stage that I want to help you guys like work through and try to like figure out and sort of like different ways to practice and what sort of to practice and kind of like I'm kind of thinking of the courses as if I was to go back in time to when I first started, like how what would kind of be like the optimal way for me to relearn. And it's gonna mostly be for like drawing from imagination, coming up with like your own ideas, your own characters, and different things like that. So I kind of want to like get you guys to a point where if you want to make your own personal projects, whether it's like a comic or animation, TV series, game, whatever, you would kind of be like equipped or could learn from this kind of like um, series on how to go about that or like have the knowledge and skill set to be able to do it. So don't mind this cube, but I was just like testing something out with my drawing with a mouse, which is not the best way to draw, but if you don't have like anything to draw with, drawing with a mouse is actually not that bad. And it's like it's really not that bad. I've done a few drawings with just the mouse. So yeah, I definitely think that tools don't really matter too much. You can pretty much draw with whatever you have. And so if you're doing this traditionally or digitally, it doesn't really matter. Everything still will cross over the exact same. So I wouldn't worry too much about like specific tools or trying to find the best tools. I've drawn with a bunch of like really cheap brushes with cheap ink, and it's you just kind of get used to it, and there's not really much difference. Like everything still kind of applies. But yeah, so today's video, I want to talk about lines. I think lines are like kind of underrated, I feel like, for drawing in general because it really is like the core function of drawing. And like if you improve your lines, like I wouldn't try to master any of these steps that I kind of like go through for each video. Like each video I'm gonna kind of like label as a step to work towards, and I have them in order that I kind of feel is the best, but it's also just was done in a like in a couple hours, kind of like figuring out what kind of steps I would go through and like which order so it's like as seamless as possible. So yeah, and if the line stuff is like too easy for you and you're more of like an advanced to mid artist or even like higher skill set than me, then like these videos might have some information, like different thought processes that might not have thought of, or they might not like be as useful. So this is like a very, very beginner thing, but all of these different like skills or things to practice are also like very infinite, I feel like, on kind of like the skill time timeline, like just drawing like something like a box or something. There's so much that can keep being like advanced onto it and just keep getting like more accurate as you go down the line and that sort of thing. So I think all of these skills definitely have a continuous progression that you can always kind of work on. And whenever I'm doing a drawing, I will always like what can I, like, every couple lines or every line, I'm like always thinking, how can I make this drawing better? Like, what are some things I can practice on this drawing? And I think I go about it in a very general way. And so you can kind of be very specific on each of the different steps or aspects and concepts, or you can be very like combining them all together. So I think it just depends on like personality and kind of what works best for you. So yeah, for lines, I think the main thing that really progresses my own drawings is a lot of the lines, because if you think of your lines as basically like a roadmap of how you're gonna work through the different character, and if you're playing around with like ink or different things, then it starts to become a bit of like line weight really matters, and you can improve like how much pressure and like tapering off your lines and different things like that. So yeah, I think lines are very, very, very important and can like single-handedly make a drawing look really good. And really all these different skills that I'm kind of going to talk about along the way can like single-handedly like make your drawings like look very good. You could basically like go into any specific one, like if you wanted to focus on only lines and you didn't care about anything else, you could still like make something that's really, really cool from that, and it might be enough to like get you to where you want to go. So but I like to kind of like learn in many different ways and kind of just see, explore a lot of different styles, like aspects of drawing. My nib is kind of messed up on this pen, but I'll use it for the rest of this video. All right, so yeah, for lines, so I think the main thing that I would practice for lines really at the start is just kind of like drawing a straight line, and like a straight line becomes a bit harder like the longer it has to be. So if you want a very straight line, like doing shorter ones will usually get you a more of a straight line. And I'm drawing digitally on like a tablet, so my lines aren't as great as I would normally do on traditional. So my drawings might not be as like great. My lines might not be as straight. But yeah, this is kind of how it is changing to different tools. But yeah, so if you can just practice like doing lines really, and I think that's really like a really good foundation to kind of improve on. And all these steps, I wouldn't necessarily want you to like master each of them, because it will just take too much time and they have a bit of diminishing returns. I feel like if you're focusing on a specific skill. So like if you were to do lines, like yeah, you could start getting super straight lines, but while we're drawing like actual figures and different things later on, you will just kind of like start to like gain this or further this skill set on its own. So if we're like going to draw some kind of like zombie or something, then like while I'm doing this, I am practicing lines as well. So that's kind of like gonna be a repeating trend with a lot of these different skill sets and different traits, I guess, is that they can be separated and studied apart, or they can be all done together. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. I like to group a lot of things. And so if you kind of already are like you like to doodle and draw random things, then just kind of adding these concepts I talk about in these videos, and just kind of like if you like doing characters, just draw a character and like focus on just your line work while you're doing it and not much else, and then you can kind of go from there. So yeah, just doing like a character like this, get a bit of line work in, and I could go further with him, but we'll just kind of leave it at that. And So yeah, that's kind of where the lines come in, because this whole character is basically built of a bunch of lines, like curves, the shapes and different things, and the eyes. So basically the lines are like for drawing specifically, and it works into painting too, which I'll talk about down the road. But yeah, basically everything is made up of these lines to create an illusion of a character, which is basically like the core kind of premise of the lines, is to create an illusion that there's basically something that there's not really there, like there's a character or some kind of world or whatnot. So yeah, so just practicing lines from like different angles. There's probably gonna be some awkward angles, like kind of, I guess, like a backhand kind of line might be a little hard to do at first. And you can kind of like start arcing them a little bit and curving them, and just kind of like doing different things, and really just experimenting on each of these different things is really gonna help a lot. Like if you just kind of want to play around and do some like different as abstract sort of things with the lines, I think this will like really help just kind of get used to how the how the feel of it really is, because all of these kind of different shapes will all be usable for your different drawings. So it's not like anything is useless at any time. But yeah, so just lines. You can really do whatever you want. You can kind of just, when you're doodling, just kind of focus on like how the shapes are. You could start tapering your lines by, if you're using like a any kind of tool that lets you do it, like digital, it's pretty easy to taper, but you can just start like using pressure and then leaning off of it, and pressure and leaning off of it, and that will kind of create some nice lines that you could use for like line weight. But that's a bit of a more advanced thing, I guess, for now. But yeah, just some cartoony skeleton characters. But yeah, just practicing lines, just getting used to just how it feels really to place them. Kind of like a bunch of different angles, like if you're going out from a center, and all of these things will just be useful, like some kind of like swirl, kind of the distance. I don't know if you can kind of see on a lot of these lines, I'm like kind of spacing them very equally apart. And I feel like this is a very, like, very good, useful skill for drawing characters. I'm not really sure why, but this is like very, very, very important for like, it's probably the most used lines sort of system that I guess I use, especially on like detailing. So if I'm doing like a shoulder pad for armor, this sort of like effect of how they're all evenly spaced in between here really kind of adds into what I did here with like the grooves, and it'll work really nicely into once I start like talking about perspective and detailing and a bunch of different things like that. But this is just really useful if you can kind of evenly space your lines apart and start to just kind of like mold them however you kind of find is fun. And you don't have to do this for like multiple days or weeks just doing lines, but if you ever just feel like messing around and just kind of like trying some things, you can kind of just mess around and do whatever you feel like with lines. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a, not much I can really talk about other than I think it's like a very important thing, and you could even like try to split these lines in half, which can be kind of hard. Like just playing these little like mini games, I guess. Well, basically just get you like a little bit familiar for when we go into the next steps. I think it will build like a good base understanding. I think a really repeating like thing is that, so if there's ever something that you want to draw, like let's say you want to draw a tiger or something, I think without going to even like look at what a tiger looks like, if you just kind of go and mess around and go and draw like your own iteration of a tiger, like what you kind of think it looks like in your head or what you're imagining. And if you go and draw that and then just kind of like play around with it however the best, whatever you kind of like know about a tiger, and then later on once you kind of like want to take it further and then look at what an actual tiger looks like or something like that, then you already kind of have like this base comfort level built up, because you have like just doing your own iteration of a tiger really gets you like, I think like 80% there, because you have this kind of relationship kind of builds up with the ideas of the tiger. Like you've like me doing this one, let's say I don't know necessarily what a tiger looks like, just me kind of like messing around with these different features. Like I know a tiger has stripes and that sort of thing, so just messing around, playing around with the idea that he has stripes and a lot of fur. And then from that, I can kind of just make my own like iteration of a tiger. And then once I go to look up what a tiger looks like, or I see one in a movie or whatnot, then I kind of like have this base of to go off of and then reiterate and play off of for what to correct or what to change and that sort of thing. So just your drawings don't need to be perfect in like any way. You basically, I think the hardest thing about drawing and the most important thing is just kind of going for it, no matter, and kind of like looking past whatever skill set you currently have or what you think you can do. If you can kind of like look past that and just go for it despite all that, I think you will progress like very quickly. So yeah, I think that's probably gonna do it. But yeah, just lines. I think they're really really important. And if you can kind of practice even spacing, if you're using a brush or a digital, you could practice taper in by starting thin and or thick to thin, kind of like letting off of it as you go with pressure. And yeah, and then just kind of like different angles that might feel a little weaker, you just haven't explored too much, so you can kind of get a little bit more comfortable with it. So yeah, that's gonna do it for kind of like the step one, episode one of this series. So yeah, I'll see you guys in step two.